Boys, it has been a long time. This is not an Infinity. This is not a G35, and it's not a built motor, but it is. Because we have the CLA45 AMG here, 2014. This is my new and only car. So this is my daily, this is my, not project, because we're trying to keep it reliable. This is my car. So we're gonna pretend I drive around with this engine cover on, which I don't. And what we're gonna be doing right now is showing you guys how to make sure that your wastegate actuator is correctly placed for OEM specs. So the first thing we're going to want to do is remove this heat shield, and under there we'll have access to the wastegate, which goes into the exhaust side of the turbo. So we're going to double check that everything is closing at the right vacuum level that it's supposed to. So the first thing I want to do is we're going to take off these 3 heat shield bolts with an E10 socket, nice and simple. You probably don't need a ratchet this long, it's just what I have. And we're going to make our lives a little easier by grabbing this bad boy. You want to make sure your engine's cooled down a little bit before you do this because, you know, it gets pretty hot. Once you pop that off, put it to the side, and now we have access to these V-band bolts here. We're going to have to remove those and flex the downpipe out of the way so we can see the inside and ensure that it's closing and fully sealing. So now that we have the heat shield off, we're going to get these 2 E14 V-band bolts. And they're going to be probably hard for you to remove, but I recently just did a new turbo on this, so they're not going to be really hard for me at all. As you can see, they just kind of pop off. So if they are difficult for you to come out, don't be afraid to put a torch on them, give them a little bit of heat. Don't snap them, because the last thing you want to do when you're just checking on your actuator is have to run to a parts store to buy a new bolt or a new V-band setup, or call Mercedes and beg and pray that they have one in stock. So yeah, just heat it up if it doesn't want to move, and that's pretty easy. So now that we have these 2 bolts off the V-band, it's not going to want to happily come with you. It might be easier on mine because, once again, I just did this. But pop that off. So you can take one side of the V-band. You might need to put a little more force than me. Like I said, I just did this recently. And mine's still a little warm, but nothing crazy. So you can take out this. Throw your bolt back in so you don't lose it. Because no one wants to lose bolts, you know. And then we'll pop off the other side as well. So I don't know if you can see, but right here there's a little slot that holds the turbo exhaust side to the V-band. It's just pretty much to help you line up your V-band to make these bolts accessible. And you can pry in there, pry underneath, hammer either one with the screwdriver, and eventually it'll give you enough room to either pry up underneath it or from right here, and it should wiggle right out. And now your downpipe is disconnected. So now that the downpipe is removed, you can see your wastegate here. You can hear that little jingle. These bushings themselves tend to get really beat up over time. Mine is brand new, like I said, so this is me wiggling it. There's no play at all, which is what you want. But the thing is, with the ones that get worn in, with this wastegate fully actuated, you still have that wiggle, right? So what you want to do is attach a Mighty Vac or a vacuum pump or something that you do have to your actuator on the turbo. So the way I like to do it is because this will run all the way up through here to the back of the transducer, and there is a double barbed fitting back here. We can just take part of this line off and set our vacuum pump up right back here instead of removing this down here and dealing with the accordion on your intake and all that. So this is a very easy way, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So now coming back here, you can see our little plastic sheathing on the rubber tube. See that metal in the middle there? It looks like a nut. That is simply a barb that connects to the elbow into the transducer. So we're going to probably grab a needle nose, or even a screwdriver might work for this, to hold that back, and then peel off this side, because we don't want to rip these hoses, because then you'll end up with a low boost code. Because trust me, I learned that one already the hard way. And just like that, it should come out. Nothing ripped, looks good to me. So this is what we're looking for right here. This little barb fitting, and this connects all the way down to our actuator. So now that you had the barb in here, you can pull the barb out nice and easy from the side that goes to the wastegate actuator and replace it with one of the provided little fittings that comes with your Mighty Vac Harbor Freight tool here. This thing is great. It was $55 and definitely worth it. So if you have a external wastegate or an actuator or something like that and you need to work on a car, or say you have friends who have cars that need this, definitely worth the investment. Shout out Harbor Freight, thank God you exist. And then we got plug it in right here. Nice and simple. It should be a tight squeeze. It shouldn't be too loose because then you're going to lose pressure. So just to make sure we're not leaking anywhere, we'll give it a couple pumps. Look at that. So we have 0 vacuum leak right now going right to the actuator. So we know that this isn't going to give us a false reading, and then you can release pressure. So now that we have that figured out, we're going to move back to where we actually see our wastegate rod here, right? So at 0 psi, it's going to be not moving at all. As we turn it up, you'll see it start to move. And what we want here is between 12 and 14 inch mercury to be fully sealed. So we're sitting at just under 12 right now, and we're going to check with our hands if this has movement. Barely any. Like not much at all. So we're sitting just under 12. If you can hear that, it's not wiggling at all. And then naturally, if I go tighter, it's not going to wiggle even more. So we'll go down to, I don't know, let's try 10. Can you hear that wiggle? Hopefully our mic can pick it up. But that means it's not closed all the way, which is not what we want. So let's go slowly. At 11, we're almost fully closed. 12, absolutely fully closed. So what I was told by Eurocharged is 12 to 14 is the OEM tolerance you want for that. So in order to avoid underboosting, if you're getting fully sealed between like 5 and 10, you want to loosen up these two nuts and bring them out, which will make it so that the less vacuum you have, it's not completely shutting your wastegate. So you want to be around 12 or 14 inch mercury when it fully seals the way mine just did around 12. I'm probably going to adjust it myself to about 13-ish. Aside from that, 12 to 14 is the range you want to be in for an OEM setup. If you have a tuned car or something, let your tuner tell you what to do. But OEM, 12 to 14 inch-pounds on this. So we'll check it one more time. Bring it up to 12 there. And then give it a feel inside. And it's not moving at all. So we're doing pretty good. I think I might be able to adjust it out a little bit because it kind of seemed like it was fully closed at 11. Yeah, it feels almost fully seated at 11 and a half there. So I'm probably going to adjust this out just a tiny bit, and I'll show you guys how to do that right now. All right, so the easiest part, this is gonna make you happy. The easiest part, come on over here, of doing your adjuster for the rod is you just gotta pry off this little rat bastard. Wow, I thought it'd be easier than that. Let me get a flathead. I'm sorry, I fucking lied to you guys. You pretty much just boink it in there. Pop this
right down there.
Ah! The claw. Alrighty, so we're back, baby. We got a little magnet claw. And also, look at that! Surprise 10mm. I think I dropped that one. It might have been just like a gift from the previous owner, but I'll take it, you know? Who doesn't need a 10mm? But yeah, anyways, that clip comes out. Don't drop it. Alrighty, so now that we have that clip removed and retrieved, thank God, very simple step. They're both 10mm, the little jam nuts down here. So I have a quarter ratchet with a 10mm. We can move that fucking thing out of the way. Pop that on there. Pop this on there. And loosen them up. So now that they can move by hand. And what we want to do is lengthen this rod. So we're gonna tighten up this side while this side lays off a little bit. And we're only moving like 1 inch mercury. So we're just gonna do a little trial and error here. It's not gonna be much. So I probably gave it maybe a half a turn so far. That's another quarter, maybe 3/4 of a turn. And then we're gonna snug these down. And then with the power of our mighty vac, once again, we'll pull this forward and double check this. So we're at 0, at 1 inch, nothing. Okay, now we're moving. Still moving, almost at 10, still moving. Okay, we're loose. At 11, we're still a little loose. At 12, we are just about fully, actually that's more than 12, sorry. So a little slower than that. So that's 11, we're moving. 12, we have no movement at all. Double check that again, because they do adjust over time, which is why I'm actually doing this again. This is a new turbo, new wastegate. I just want to ensure that the settings are correct, even after driving it for about 500 miles. So that's about 12.5 with no movement. Movement at 10. Movement at 11. Like no movement at 11.5. We're going to adjust it out just a little bit more, because 12 to 14 is the range, and being just under 12 doesn't really seem like a power move, at least for right now, especially with no tune. All I have is a K&N intake. Just want to make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be. So loosen that up a little bit again. We'll back this off half a turn. Tighten this side up half a turn. To increase the length of our rod here. If it'll snug, which now it is. We'll give it a little bit of love to tighten it up. Okay, so that's snugged up there. And we're going to check it again. Pretty much we're going to do this over and over until we reach our desired closed. So we're moving, we're moving, we're moving, we're moving, we're moving. 10, we're moving. 11, we're moving. 12, we are barely moving, not much. But let's see. 12 is shut. So I might need to adjust it out just a tiny bit more. Just a little baby bit. Not half a turn. It doesn't take much to move an inch mercury, so we don't want to get too rambunctious with it. So we'll snug it back up now after another half a turn. Okay, and we'll check it. We're shooting for 13 here. That's my nominal number I want here is 13. So our loosey-goosey obviously at 0. Let's bring it up to 10. Loosey-goosey. 11, loosey-goosey. 12 has a little play. Actually, not much at all, honestly. Let's go 10. 11. 11.5. 12 is movement. 13 has no movement at all. 9 has movement. 10 has movement. 11 has movement. 11.5. 12, tiny bit of movement. 13 has nothing. Okay, we'll do it one more time just to make sure. Really exercise this thing. So you see it's moving all the way through. We're at 10. We got wiggle. 11 has wiggle. 12, wiggle starts to go away, but there's still a little bit. Then 13, fully sealed. That's what we want. That's nominal according to Eurocharged. So we're gonna leave that the way it is. I'm gonna put a little bit more snug on these, throw the clip back on, and that's how you're gonna adjust your wastegate to make sure it's sealed at 12 to 14 inch mercury. If you get to 12 to 14 inch mercury and it's not sealing, a very, very common thing with these turbos is that bushing that connects your wastegate to your actuator into the inside of the turbo where it actually closes the valve. That goes. Very often, if you go on any forum, any kind of Facebook group, you're going to see people wondering, how do I fix this without buying a new turbo, and yada yada yada. And people can weld in a new bushing setup with this rod here. I chose to replace the turbo because I just bought this car at 63,000 miles. It now has 68, and I figured the turbos go bad on these eventually anyways, so I might as well put a brand new upgraded thrust bearing turbo in it. And then I'm going to put a blow-off valve on it to try to get rid of some of that compressor surge, which there will be another video very soon about that coming up. And we'll show you how we do it, and we'll tell you why it's better than running with a block-off plate the way these cars came from 2014 to 2016, I think, early 16. And yeah, so we're going to button this back up with the clip and then start tightening everything back up. So the first thing to do, and what I find the easiest, because we already have everything down here off and set up, you can leave this hooked up to your hose for now, it doesn't really matter. We're going to put the V-band back on. So, nice and simple. The way it came off is the way it goes on. There's going to be a slot on the top side that tells you exactly how to sit it on the turbo here. So see this slot? There's a matching little point right there that sticks out. And you'll want to get it to sit right on it, like so. Nice and easy. And then you can run the back side underneath. And I can't recommend enough, do this while your engine is not hot, because this would be me burning myself really badly. So run that V-band back up the side like that. Might need to finagle a little bit because this heat shield's a pain in the ass, but so once you have your V-band all snugged up and set to where it needs to be with that part there, you can start threading the bolts through. It's not going to look even from here to there. I don't know why, but it just never does. You can obviously adjust the angle of it through tightening one side, loosening one side, and whatever, but for the sake of the shortness of this part, I'm just going to throw them in here. And now that you've got that V-band finger tight for now, E14 again, you want to try to snug it up evenly. So we'll give it a few turns up top, a few turns down bottom, a few turns up top. You get the gist. We're just trying to make it seat evenly while we tighten it down. I don't know, I'm sure there is a torque spec for this thing, but I say good and tight is fucking fine with me. So it's just an exhaust clamp. It's already got a seating surface on the inside. You just want to make sure it doesn't blow off, doesn't leak. V-bands are pretty notoriously good for not leaking, so just give her a good snug. Like, I think that's probably more than enough up top. Maybe a little more on the bottom, and that's probably good for the bottom. So double check the top after I tighten that, just to make sure. Yep. So you put the V-band back on there, and then our next step is going to be to remove our special little adapter from our vacuum line that comes from the actuator and reroute it back into its little holes where it came from. Don't forget to put your barb back in there, because you don't want to have it just raw dog in there. You need it to connect to something, so pull back your little heat sheathing here if you can. It's a pain in the ass sometimes. And then throw the barb back in there, nice and snug. And then you'll bring it back around to the other barb for the elbow and push it into that one. Nice and snug. And once you've done that, you've tightened this up, it's clipped, the V-band is on, you've reconnected your vacuum line back to the transducer and the boost sensor back there, you can simply replace your heat shield, which is the E10s on the heat shield here. Actually, just throw them on there right now for you. And that's really all it takes to adjust and check your wastegate actuator. It's a fairly simple process. Requires minimal effort, honestly. If you have the tools, this may have taken me 20 minutes to do without recording, but we're recording, so it took a little bit longer. So put those back on, make sure they're nice and even. You don't want it to be rubbing against anything somewhere, so get it all snugged up. Make sure there's no movement. And then you can tighten it down with the socket. Definitely too big of a ratchet for it, so I'm not gonna go crazy. But nice and snug there. I like to do the top two and then the bottom front, just to make sure everything's not moving. That's good. And then if you have your engine cover still on, which I don't know why you would, all it does is rub these lines and increase your engine temperatures. If you still have it back on, you can pop that back in its little slots here, and now you have a guaranteed actuated or guaranteed adjusted wastegate actuator to factory settings. So it's that simple. These turbos are amazing. They're right on the front of the engine. Maybe the construction of the turbo is not amazing, but working on them is real easy. So that's how you're going to go ahead and adjust your actuator on a M133 A45 CLA45 GLA45 AMG.